Welcome to Eternity Archives, a podcast by Eternity College for students, alumni, faculty, and friends. I'm Ernesto Duke, Eternity's president and the host of this podcast. At Eternity, we have students, alumni, and faculty living all around the world, living for the kingdom of Jesus. One of the most beautiful things about Eternity is how our diverse community, representing different countries, cultures, and backgrounds, comes together to study and be transformed by the scriptures. In this podcast, we hope to share the amazing story of Jesus' people in God's kingdom around the world at Eternity College. This is Eternity Archives. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for listening to or watching Eternity Archives. I'm Ernesto Duke, president of Eternity College, and I'm here with one of our students, Aaron Jarvis. So, Aaron, thank you so much for being on the show. Just to get things kicked off, we'd love to hear a little bit about you, where you're living, ministry, life, whatever it is that you want to share with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I live in Indiana, on the southern part of Indiana.
Okay.
Um, so right now my ministry is I help with our local youth group at the church I attend.
Mm.
Um, so I just help the youth pastor with whatever he needs, if that's covering a lesson for him because he's sick or has work, or if chaperoning events, that kind of thing.
Okay. And what size church is it? How big is the youth group? What does that look like for
Um,
you?
the youth group's about 20 people, give or take a few, depending on the Sunday.
Okay.
The church congregation's about 150,
Oh, okay.
roughly.
Cool.
So,
And is that what you do for work, or are you just a full-time student?
I have a job. I work at what it's called the Aurora Recreational Center
Oh,
in
okay.
our city. And it's like a YMCA type of place.
All right. Like after school programs, sports, and things like that.
They don't really. I just work a desk. They don't really offer a lot of
Oh, okay.
programs that I
Gotcha,
help
gotcha.
with. I just work the desk and make memberships.
Cool. Well, I'd love to hear from you, kind of what brought you to Eternity. Why'd you become a student? What kind of triggered that desire in your heart to study? Anything like about that you'd like to share with us?
So it was really a God thing that I found eternity. So I was trying to find a different school. So I attended one Bible college. I didn't
Hmm.
really like it very much. So I was trying to find a school that I didn't have to do a whole lot of extra stuff that wasn't just ministry related
Hmm.
classes. And I just typed in my phone one day, schools that don't require I forget what exactly it was. It was something I was trying not to do extra
Okay.
work, youth ministry stuff, and it pulled up. It was like the second option. It
Oh,
was,
perfect.
it was the second school option.
Cool. Because you were going to like a traditional college where you had like a ton of gen eds and things like that?
Um, No, not really. It was just I was gonna take extra classes, like a lot of the like extra, college classes,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't the biggest fan of what the school really taught in some
Oh, okay.
ways. It was a Bible college, but I just didn't like some of the ways they taught some of the stuff. It
Hmm.
didn't sit very well with me, so I decided to not
To
finish
look around.
my degree there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. And what program are you in at the school?
I'm in the youth ministry certification
Oh, okay,
program.
cool. And after that, you feel like you want to continue to pursue youth ministry, or you're not sure? That's like a first step for you. Or what are you thinking?
Once I get done with my certification, I'm going to try to find a church that needs a youth minister
Uh-huh.
and see what happens from there. That's my goal right
That's
now.
great. That's great. What is it that draws you to youth ministry? What do you enjoy about it?
I just like helping, like in the area because I've lived in India. I lived in Indianapolis before I moved down to where I live now, and I've seen a lot of kids lose their way and ends up getting killed because they get involved with gangs or drugs
Hmm.
or something. And it just hurts me to see the youth and kids my age get tangled up and stuff. And I want to be a stepping stone in the right direction so they can find something better than what they are doing. Find
Yeah.
what really is going to fill that hole in their heart.
Was youth group a part of your growing up or your discipleship when you were younger?
Yeah. So my parents were youth pastors at a couple churches we went to. So
Okay.
I was in youth group before I really was old enough to be in youth group.
Okay.
So
That's great. Yeah. And then you're just carrying on the torch, if you will.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
very cool. Well, I'd love to. This has always been my favorite segment of every show we've done. I'd love to uh, shift a little bit and ask you what is something that you feel like you are uniquely passionate about, like something that God has put in your heart that is going to, you imagine it's going to be something that drives you for the rest of your life.
Um, I would have to say youth, helping the youth. I
Mm,
really do. I have a big heart for the youth and stuff, so I would have to say that for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. What would you say to like a so like I'm a part of a smaller church, maybe like 60, 70 people or so on like the biggest day possible, 60, 70 people. We don't have a youth group. We don't do any sort of youth ministry or anything like that. What would you say that you feel like maybe we're missing by not having that as a part of our church?
I've seen it because we went to a church one time that they didn't have really anything for the youth,
Uh-huh.
and some kids, some teenagers and little kids, they have to have someone teaching directly to them.
Mm,
The pastor at a church could be doing his hardest job to preach to everyone in the congregation, but sometimes someone needs a one-on-one experience with someone that is directed just toward them.
mm,
That's something
yeah.
I've learned over
Yeah.
the years.
As you've been because you said that sometimes you fill in like lessons for the youth pastor, right? You said that. What has been some of your favorite things to teach, or some of your favorite lessons, Bible passages, stories, things like that that you've had a chance to teach through?
I would have to say I did a lesson on love, what
Hmm.
true love is, and I really like doing that one.
Yeah,
That
what
was
did you
really
like?
cool.
What did you like about it?
Because at the time there were some people in our youth group, they're not anymore, but they were having some struggles with
Hmm.
what they thought love looked like with their boyfriends and
Hmm.
their girlfriends and stuff. And I like that I was able to give them more of a direction toward what true love really looks like and what the
Hmm.
Bible says love is,
Hmm.
and not just temporary love what the world gives us.
Hmm. Yeah, do you feel like that's a big struggle of youth today? Is not maybe that's just specific to Indiana, but not having good examples of what true covenant, long lasting love looks like.
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of single parents, there's a lot of grandparents that these
Mm,
kids were born out of just quick relationships and stuff,
mm,
and they don't really have good figures of what love really is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Where do you see, how do you see the gospel or the good news of Jesus being an answer to that question or to that gap, I guess, that maybe exists in culture there?
That it shows them, like, for people that are, like, single, like, they didn't really have a father figure, they can I've seen it with some people my parents knew that they did youth group stuff, that God became that father figure to them,
Mm,
that became they might not have an earthly dad, but they do have a father they can look up to.
mm, yeah, yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. Um, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit and ask one of what's become one of my favorite questions as well from an audience or listener submitted questions. And this is, what is something that over your Christian faith that you have changed your mind about? Something that maybe you believed or thought like something really, really firmly, and then you've kind of realized like, oh, I was mistaken and I need to make an adjustment.
Um, it's how I before it was actually something that's happened with my Old Testament class I'm in that's kind of brought to my attention, God's brought to me.
Mm,
It's how some people look at Bible characters, especially Old Testament Bible characters, that aren't really truly biblical. Some
mm,
of the things people try to put in there, that's something that's changed. Because I was one of those things that some of the stuff I would read, I would think some stuff that wasn't super biblical, but now I'm realizing that was kind of bad of the way I was thinking about it.
sure. Like what? Give me an example. I think I know what you're saying, but give me an example.
Yeah. So, like, a lot of I remember when I was in school and I mean, in, like, Sunday school and stuff, and I was one of them that believed that a lot of people look up to, Samson,
Mm,
that he was this great person and everything, and while I was taking my Old Testament class this last 2 weeks ago when we or a week ago, whenever it was, and I was like, and it's hit me before then too. I'm like, yeah, we really probably shouldn't look up to Samson as much as we do as a
Yeah.
like as a good figure, yes, but in some of the ways some people look up to him as a character, it's not really the best of people we need to make our lives about. Like we need to be a Samson. And
Yeah.
that's changed a little bit
Yeah.
for me over the
Yeah.
years.
So the idea that like you had maybe had the thought before that Samson was like a moral character that you should try and model your life after. Like let look at Samson, see what he does, try and mimic that in your life, and then you've realized that would be pretty horrible. You
Yeah,
do a lot of
yeah,
really bad
definitely.
things. Yeah, if you followed
Yeah,
him. Yeah, yeah, and
yeah.
obviously the lesson there too is how God still uses him, and there's like this moment of redemption for him at the end of his life and
Oh
things like
yeah,
that. Um, but it's not exactly the life that you should aspire after.
yeah,
Yeah. What?
yeah.
Uh, why do you think that? And this might be too convoluted of a question, but what do you think led you to read Old Testament characters as like people you should model your life after? Was it is it just like a maybe a lack of familiarity with the whole big picture, or is that like what was given to you in Sunday school, or what do you think?
Part of it was the way I remember when we lived in Indianapolis, went to church, and that was part of the way that they taught us in Sunday school was
Mm,
that we should look at these characters as mentors in our life, that we should look up
mm,
to them and be similar to them, and not just Old Testament characters, New Testament ones too.
sure. Yeah.
But and I'm like, and the older I've gotten, the more I've realized we probably shouldn't look up to some of them as like some of them that they would use and put them in such high regards as some people do, just
Mm,
because some of them, that makes sense.
yeah. 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 You really got to be. I mean, the Bible. Um, I think a lot of that in our culture comes from that's how we like to tell stories. We like to tell stories with a protagonist who is the good guy, who does the good thing, who does the right thing, makes the right decisions. And so sometimes we read
Mhm.
that into our Bible stories. But the Bible is very, especially the Old Testament and a lot of the narratives are very real about humanity and just
Yeah,
how broken, fallen, sinful, and swept up in their own cultural values that humanity can be at times. And so that's cool, man. I'm glad that's something that's kind of unfolding and changing for you in that course. Is that the only class you're taking right now? Is that Old Testament course, or what else are you doing?
I'm taking discipleship and counseling.
Oh, okay.
That's the class
What
I'm taking.
what's something that stood out to you from that course, from your reading or lectures or Zoom discussions?
Um, I'm not sure how to describe it, but the way he's taught us how to give proper discipleship and counseling to people,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. Like I'm not sure how to explain it, but because if you take the class, you understand what I'm saying. But because like I've done a little bit of discipleship and counseling, but I mean the way he's done it, he's opened up a whole new world to the way we could really do it, in
Hmm.
my eyes anyway, that really help people better.
Yeah. Well, can you describe maybe an aspect of that? Like, what's something that you feel like you would have approached the situation this way or through these methods or whatever, and now you're realizing maybe this approach would be a little bit different or better?
The way I would approach someone about their sin issue. Like
Hmm.
if I'm recognizing a sin issue in a friend or someone at the church, the way I would approach them before this course is definitely different now that I've taken this course and we're almost over with it.
Hmm. Yeah. In what ways? Like, what
Um,
tangible ways would you say is different?
like before I would have just went up to someone and told them, "Hey, you need to stop doing this." I wouldn't have been as nice of it, I
Oh,
guess you
okay.
could say. And the way I've learned it is you need to be more gentle with it. You need to approach them gentle. You need to be, you
Hmm.
still need to you need to talk to them about their issue. But like I've seen ways that I could definitely do it much better. Like the Colossians 3, he talked about how we could use Colossians 3 and how we could have someone read that with us and
Hmm.
ask them what type of things pull out of it for them, and that would help us figure out what the issue is for them even
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. Awesome, dude. Well, that's great to hear. Thank you so much for spending some time with us, Aaron, and thank you for everybody who listened or watched to this episode. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Eternity Archives. If you haven't already, check out Eternity College with 30 plus programs, including advanced bachelor's degrees, dual degrees, associates, and certificates. At Eternity, we're ready to prepare you for whatever it is that God calls you to and wherever it is that He calls you right now. Check out eternity.edu for more information.